All right. Well, I'm so lucky today to have with me from Harmony Turbines, Christopher and Cheryl Moore. They are the co-founders and co-partners of the company. And we heard about you guys from one of our viewers, sent us a video saying, what's up with this company? They're making some weird looking wind turbine thing. You got to look into it. So we're looking into it. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Zach.
Yes.
We've been watching your show for a little while, and it's, something that I would watch a video here, a video there, and it's been a few years that I've known about you. So
awesome. Well, that's the great part about this community, right? Is that we all get to learn about what's going on in sustainable energy. So tell me about, for people who've never heard of Harmony Turbines, tell me about what it is you guys are working on and, what's going on in your shop.
I decided to make Harmony Turbines because I've always been, for the last 25 years, trying to come up with some way to work in sustainable and clean energy tech as a career. I'm like doing IT work for a living normally for the last 30 years, and I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to get some of the ideas that were up in my head out into the world to make a difference. So that's where Harmony stems from. We were trying to just do something that would help make a difference, make the world a better place. And I've got a lot of different ideas and inventions, but Harmony seemed like the perfect opportunity at the right time. So it was just a synergy of, we need this tech, it's the right time, the right place, and so that it just sort of sprang from that.
But what makes your turbine different than, I go on Amazon, right? And I can find a lot of like wind turbines. In fact, Jesse and I have made some and bought some. And it just seems like there's a plethora of wind turbines. What makes yours special?
We were just talking about this really, not even half an hour ago. And it's like the industry at large just said, okay, we've got these huge, massive things that are out there on the coast that are 6 and 10 megawatts. Let's just shrink them down and give them to people and hope that they'll be happy with them. Well, Zach, we don't want the big, huge ones anywhere near our homes. We don't want them anywhere near us because they're ugly, they're noisy, they're problematic. They break and blow up when the wind gets high. There's a lot of issues. So right now there's legislation and court battles all over the place. People saying, not in my backyard, get that away from me. Why would we think that people would want to shrink that down and put it in their yard? Yay, we don't want the big ones in our yard, but the small ones are awesome? No. You need to rethink this technology from the ground up. You need to rethink from a standpoint of what a consumer is going to be happy with. You can ride your bike to work, or you can drive your car to work. You choose to take your car so that you get to work in one piece. Your hair's not all messed up. You're not soaked because it was raining. There's a lot of convenience that goes into that decision. Yes, the bike is more economical, but there's reasons that you ride the car. Harmony is that. Harmony is the solution to all of the problems that we see right now. Wind turbines on small scale, you can drive all around and you don't see them anywhere. Like, okay, 1 out of 1,000 homes, 1 out of 10,000 homes has one. Because the products that are out there on the market right now, they suck. Am I allowed to say that word on your show?
Of course.
Okay. They suck. And we were like, we can do this better. We're smarter than that. We can make a product that actually works and people are happy with, people are pleased with. And that's what Harmony is about, doing something that makes the environment and, the world a better place, but at the same time does it in a way people are happy with so that they buy it and endorse it.
So there are 2 patents that we have for our technology that specifically address the noise, the startup speeds, the protecting itself in high winds so that it doesn't blow up, like so many we see on YouTube. So yeah, there's, specifically we have a furling mechanism for our scoops or for the wingspan that help us protect ourselves. And the generator helps with starting up in low wind speeds. It helps with the noise factor. Like a lot of times people don't realize that the noise factor that we hear with current versions of wind turbines is not only perhaps the blades spinning, but it also has to do with the generator. So we have a patent on a generator design that is never before seen. We're
awesome.
Kind of like keeping our lips shut on that one. And we're working on it, but it really ties into the quiet features of our wind turbines. It helps with it's handling the RPMs differently than current generators used for wind turbines. So we're really excited about how these patents, these designs that he has, how they are directly going to address the reasons people don't buy these for their homes.
Let me say it the way it's supposed to be. How they work in harmony with one another.
Right. See, yeah.
To make a perfect product here.
There's that.
Yeah.
All right. So when Jesse and I have been doing some experiments with wind on our own, we really encountered the first big problem, which I think a lot of homeowners don't know much about, which is wind. Which is that wind down here where us humans live is not the same wind that is as you go up.
It's terrible.
Right? It's terrible.
It's
right?
dirty wind.
Exactly. And I didn't understand.
It comes from all different directions, things like that. Yeah. That is one of the main principal things that Harmony solves, because it is a vertical axis wind turbine, and all vertical axis wind turbines can take wind coming from any direction and continue spinning. So I'm not sure which...
Yeah, so walk me through that, because I didn't understand dirty wind before. I just thought, oh, if the trees are moving, it's windy today. But I quickly learned that our wind turbine didn't turn. And we would move it all over the yard. And we're like, what? Is this broken? No, it's not broken. It's that the wind is, 80 feet above me.
Right. Did you have a propeller type turbine that you were testing?
Yeah.
Okay. So our turbine comes from a Savonius heritage. So ours is a Savonius rotor, vertical axis wind turbine. We have ribbed sections in Harmony and then a helix twist. So you really are combining three things together with our turbine that you didn't have with your turbine when you were testing your propeller one. You need higher winds to get started spinning, 6-7 miles an hour for those to get moving, because they're using lift principles and aerodynamic principles that are different from our technology. So right off the bat, unless you have 6 or 7 miles an hour of consistent wind, you might have seen it go, oh, there it started, Jesse, and then it stopped. And you're like, oh, crap, that was anticlimactic. With Harmony, 1 and 2 mile an hour winds, the lightest little gust, it'll begin spinning. Now you're not, let's not mince words here. You're not generating power at 1 and 2 miles an hour. There's just no power in that wind. But people who buy something, they don't want to look out their window and, yeah, it's not spinning, Mom. Nope, it's still not spinning, Mom. 3 days later, still not spinning, Mom. It does no good. People want to see something happening with a product they buy so they can feel good about it.
So then the other problem we had was the opposite extreme that you talked about, where the manufacturer said you can't have it blow over a certain speed or it will break. And we were like, well, what? What are we supposed to do? Like, go take it down when it's... So how does yours work when it's too windy out?
So that is one of the primary things we have patented. We call it Furling Technology. And basically, we are reducing the exposure to the wind. Right now, even the big boys out there on the coast can't reduce their exposure. They can feather their blades, they can turn them, but they can't escape the wind. And I don't even think they escape it in the way you and I would think. They are actually turning 90 degrees to the wind, which makes their blade get buffeted even harder when the wind is the strongest, which to me is totally opposite of how we should be reducing that, load. And we are actually increasing it in those big turbines. So they're fighting that wind even stronger by turning flat to the wind. With us, with Harmony, all we do is reduce our diameter. And we don't need a brake to do it. We don't need a dump load to do it. All we need is a simple little stepper motor that turns on for 5 seconds and it pulls you in maybe 10%. If it's still not slow enough because it's going to constantly be checking its RPMs, then it says, pull in a little bit more. And it checks its RPMs. And if it's still too high, it pulls in again. And finally, you're going to get to a point where it says, yes, now my RPMs are safe. And it keeps on spinning. So here's the kicker. Those big wind turbines and the ones that you can buy in your yard that are actually sophisticated enough to stop themselves, they have to stop when the wind gets beyond a certain point. So now you're wasting what is essentially your best wind. You waited all month for good wind. Now it came.
You have to stop.
But hey, Mom, the wind turbine's not turning. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, Zach, how we've got all this technology out there all over the place and we expect people to buy it. It just doesn't make sense. It's like nobody thought about this stuff from the ground up. They just took, oh, there's a big one. Let's make it small and sell it to people. It's ridiculous.
I love this. I love hearing about first principles thinking. And I love that you didn't stop and go, well, there's other wind turbines out there, so forget it. I can't do that. You went, let's start with a clean slate of paper.
We'll start over.
That is exactly what we did. We started with a clean sheet of paper. Let's make this beautiful. Let's make it make sense. Let's make it easy for people to maintain and easy for them to, have it in their yard. And instead of their neighbors being like, John, what the heck was that thing that that's really annoying what you bought. They'd be coming over and being like, dude, where'd you get that? That's freaking awesome. That's what we want. We want something that people, when they put it in their yard, they get 10 more customers for Harmony Turbine, because now people want what they have, not, what do they call it? An injunction that neighbors are filing against them because they put this ugly thing up. That's what we need to, if we're going to make solutions that help the planet, it needs to be things that find mass adoption around the world, not just in the US or Europe, but around the world. And so that's what we were doing. We're coming up with technology that we know when people finally get this in their hands, they're going to be so happy with it.
And I think one of our hopes too is that, like, right now there's a lot of legislations in townships and counties for homes that restrict and have a lot of rules around what you can do with a wind turbine. Here in our area, there's only one person we know of that has a wind turbine down the road. And there were a lot of rules for her to put that in. And what we're hoping is that with our design and the quiet and beauty, that kind of thing, and it protects itself, we're hoping that it'll make it a lot easier for townships and counties to say, okay, all right, yes, this makes sense. We can allow our folks to do this. So that,
we're hoping that it prompts legislation changes after things catch on, after you get enough of these out there and people start saying, these are great. What's wrong with our laws that we're not allowed to use this? Right now, it kind of makes sense. The units that are out there are horrible. They suck. They're terrible and annoying, and they don't work, and they're problematic. Why would we make legislation and go to the effort of making legislation to let people put these annoying, horrible things in their yard? It doesn't make sense. But when you have something that's amazing and it just works, now it makes sense to give that give that a second look. Let's maybe look at changing this law. If it's this type of turbine, then we'll allow it, and things like that. I think that's going to start catching on all over.
Who do you think your typical customers are going to be? Do they live in a certain part of the country? Do they have to live in windy spots? Do they have to have a certain income?
So obviously you need wind to make this work. It's not magic. It's not perpetual motion or zero-point energy. So you need wind. Bottom line, if you don't have good wind in your area, then probably a wind turbine is not for you. But if you have decent wind in your area, then that's our perfect customer. We want to be all over the world. We want to be everywhere. We initially would target the boating and the coastal areas as our strongest proponents, our strongest initial market, because when you think about it, people who have boats, they already, if you go down to the shore and you look in the slips and the docks and the marinas, they've got hundreds of these little stupid wind turbines on their boats right now because that's all they can buy. I have people calling me, I'm not joking, 3 times a month. Chris, when are you guys going to come out with this product? I need this so bad. I've already gone through 3 wind turbines on my yacht this summer. 3. They've already got the battery banks on their boats. They've already got inverters on their boats. They already have good, strong winds constantly available on their boats. And they have the problem of high winds coming up unexpectedly all the time on their boats. Sounds kind of like the perfect solution, or, Harmony sounds like the perfect solution for this scenario. So the boating sector is one of our top places that we're going to market to right out of the gate. Coastal areas as well, because other than the fact that they may not have inverters and battery banks on their home, they've got all the other scenarios, with the high winds and the constant good, strong winds. So our hope is that these would be our initial strong customers, and then from there kind of grow as a grassroots movement.
Right. Then it can move into the home environment. As people see the success of them in the coastal area and the acceptance of them, then I think it'll just naturally gravitate and start happening into the normal environment around
Right,
us.
as you move further west and into the inland areas. And there's going to be people that just buy it because it's freaking cool and they love it and they want to endorse it, but they have no wind. So, you're going to get some of those scenarios where people are like, this is horrible. I'm not getting very good production. Well, it's not magic. We have to maybe put that as a disclaimer. It's awesome, but it's not magic.
Now, you guys got started in 2020, so you're a relatively new startup. Where are you on your journey? Because as we've learned from Elon, it's one thing to build a prototype. It's another thing to go to mass production. So are you still fine-tuning your prototype? Are you working on mass production? Where are you?
Yeah, we are actually machining parts and cutting parts right now. We've gone through 3 different iterations of trying to come up with a prototype that would work for the consumer and be inexpensive enough that it would find mass adoption. We began with a larger dream of having like a 1 kilowatt unit that we could send out to customers. But at that one, last year, I had to kind of put that in mothballs for a little bit. It's too big to launch a product with something that we can't even make in our shop and get out in mass production. It's just, we have to be able to build it, to test it, to then move it out into production. So we backed off and now we started our 400 watt campaign. Just 2 months ago, we hit a brick wall with the plastics manufacturers and plastics suppliers that we were working through to get the scoops and some of the gearing and things like that produced. We were looking at getting them injection molded, and the prices were just so horrendous, Zach, that we couldn't do it. So we said, you know what? Okay, we mothballed that and we retooled, and now we're doing a 100% fully metal, aluminum and steel prototype, which will probably roll right into our, what we would call our Mark 1 turbines that we roll out to early adopters and early beta customers.
So the footage that we'll be providing you is of our proof of concept. So we have the proof of concepts created.
Proof of concept prototypes.
Right. They furl and whatnot, but they're not weatherproof. So literally right now, the prototype that we're working on is a weatherproof one, like that can handle the rain and all that we're going to make a couple of them here all at the same time and start putting them out there to get our data.
It's our minimum viable product, our MVP. So basically, we're working on 2 units right now, one for our shop and one for Bucknell University, because we're partnered with Penn State, Bucknell, and Northumbria University for larger research projects that they're actually doing on our tech, on Harmony Turbines specifically. Bucknell is getting delivery of like unit number 2. Literally, that unit will be placed up on hard points on their engineering building, and they're going to be monitoring it 24/7 and working with all kinds of good, delicious, juicy data for us. So the 2 units we're building and cutting gears and cutting parts for right now are our first 2 Mark II. I said Mark 1 before, but our Mark II prototypes. The Mark 1s were the plastic ones that we had to scrap. So Mark II 400 watt units is what we're rolling out with. That'll be what we move into. We may be up to Mark 4 or 5 by then, but it should be some addition or rendition of these 400 watt units, fully metal. And as we tweak and test and find problems, we're going to adjust. We're going to begin rolling them out to customers. Maybe we'll make, after this run of 2, we'll make 4 more, and we'll get them out to early adopter locations, that will help us gather data, and then we'll make 10 more, and then we'll make 20 more. And finally, at that point, we'll say, okay, we've worked enough bugs out of this. It's been in the field for a year and a half. 18 months is long enough to feel good enough about going into low volume production. And from there, who knows? We may end up partnering with a larger entity who wants to get these out in mass, or maybe someone would just want to buy us out. Any of those options would be viable. We're not looking to do this for the rest of our lives. We're looking to get them out to people, and we need to get it to a certain point where then we can hand the reins to a responsible company that will do that puts it in writing that they are going to be getting this out to the consumers.
Oh, that's really interesting. So let's talk about, right now you're approaching, I think, your 3rd funding round, right? And this is going to be a crowdfund, I think I heard, on Startengine. And so for people out there who are like, I don't know what you're talking about, Zach, what is crowdfunding? Can you guys kind of walk us through that a bit?
Sure. You have 2 ways of raising funds in the crowd spectrum. One is your Kickstarter and Indiegogo, where you take pre-orders for a product and then you make those widgets, those products, with the money that you got from the pre-orders, and then you disseminate them after you're done making them to your 1,000+ customers or whatever. Our model was too expensive to do that. We weren't going to get a lot of people that would buy into an unknown like, okay, we could have set a price at $3,000 or something, hoping that that would be enough. Make 100 or 500 or 1,000 of these units and then get them out to people. The road for that was way too long. We had too much testing, too much iteration, and iterative work and things that needed to be done. Too many unknowns. It was a far more complicated widget than just a simple new coffee mug or something. So we went the other route. That is equity crowdfunding. You give away small chunks of your company in exchange for people sending you investment, equity, income that comes into your company that you then use to develop your product and go through what we're doing right now. So our first 2 funding rounds that we did were with WeFunder. We raised a total of about $404,000 between those 2 rounds to get the equipment we need, to rent the space that we need, to get the models and the raw materials and the tooling and everything, because there's a lot of iterations, a lot of changes, a lot of 90-degree turn. We were going in this direction, we have to shift. And people have beat us up for a while saying, well, you were stupid getting that shop and getting that equipment. You could have just farmed it out to, shops to make the parts for you. But what they don't understand is when you're doing real difficult research and R&D like what we are, with a lot of moving parts, a lot of unknowns, you have to change and iterate maybe 5, 6, 7 times in a year. And then we've been at it for 2 years. So now 15 iterations later, all these changes, we would have been bankrupt before we even got started.
And not only that, even shops in our area here, the lead time on jobs is 2 months. I mean, You can't make a change to a part and say, okay, now what do we do for 2 months until we get that piece back in, and then we can keep on going. Like you can't be productive that way. And so we feel good about how we have built the shop and
absolutely
put it together that we just do it all ourselves.
Yeah, we literally are making
and it works.
85% of the parts that we need right there in shop, and we can instantly, in a moment's notice, switch gears, change designs. I recad it, recam it, and then 2 days later we're machining the parts. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We got beat up in the beginning last year by people, well, you were so stupid doing that. You're so irresponsible to your investors. I call BS on that, because we did the most amazing thing that we could have done. All of the equipment's used, but we own it 100%. We have no leased equipment. We have nothing other than our rent that we pay and our time.
Right.
And we are literally able to move at the speed of our own shop now, instantly making changes, instantly making iterative updates. And we have the capabilities to make, like I said, 85% of our pieces and parts right there. I mean, that's gold when you really think about a little prototype, shop like what we are.
And the goal of the next fundraising campaign that we do is, we're working right now on making the prototypes that can actually be put out in the weather to gather data, and so we can see what we need to change. So that would help push us through that phase, which leads into low volume production. If we have units out there that people are starting to test for us and they're working, then we can start taking pre-orders and start, doing our low volume production. Our shop can handle the low volume production. So the goal of this campaign is to push us through the prototyping, this last piece of it, some data gathering, and then put us into the low volume production where we can start generating our own revenue. We're hoping.
Yeah, if we can raise enough money to get us through the next 18 months or so, we should be there. So we're literally like 2 months away from our 2 first units that we're making being to a certain point that we can hand the unit off to Bucknell and we can actually start getting some data. We have our generator that Cheryl spoke of that we've been very, very hush-hush about because it's so cutting edge that it's, I'll give people a teaser. I mean, it's patented, so it is public domain, but it's an axial flux generator with solid core technology. It excites both the north and south pole of the cores at the same time, but it has what's called a variable air gap. So Zach, if you've been following Tesla and, the EV market for a long time, you're starting to hear the buzzwords axial flux motors all the time now. Over the past 6 months, 8 months, axial flux motors, axial flux motors. Well, guess what? Harmony Turbines has had the patent for 2 years on the first axial flux generator with a variable air gap. So we simply start with the upper and lower magnetic platters far away from the coils. And when the wind begins spinning, it'll basically have zero resistance. We're able to start spinning in 1 to 2 mile an hour wind. Now you get the flywheel effect going, you get all that mass, you get all that inertia moving, and then after you're up to a certain RPM range, those platters will begin moving down into proximity of the coils, where now you have all of the beautiful benefits of the axial flux motor, the solid core dual pole coils that we have.
So he had mentioned earlier that our wind turbine starts up in 1 to 2 and maybe not generating electricity, it's just, spinning. And this is part of the beauty of the generator, the harmonious, is that because, we're just spinning, but we're getting that momentum that then allows us to start generating electricity earlier in the process than the normal wind turbines that you see out there.
That makes so much sense. I was going to ask you, what is this magic that allows it to spin at low speed? So thank you for that explanation. That's really cool.
Have you heard the term synchronicity?
Mm-hmm.
It's where the universe is pushing things together to happen at the right time. That's been happening a lot for us. And you're just one of the 3 or 4 very big things that have happened right here, right when we need it. And it sort of feels like the universe is saying, all right, little tiny Harmony turbines, we'll help you get through this, because we're not out to be rich and famous. We're not out to be titans of the wind turbine industry. We're just looking to finally do our one small part to help make the world a better place. And we're doing it from the ground up with a product that makes so much sense. And when you look at it and when you see it and when it's functioning as it should be, people are going to want this everywhere in the world. And in the end, it's going to help.
I got to say, as an investor, I was really kind of relieved when you talked about that if you get to the mass production phase, that you guys aren't going to try and maybe take that on yourselves. Because a lot of companies, I think, go, oh yeah, when we get to that part, we'll just ramp up a factory or something and we'll do it. And it's not that you can't, but it's really tricky. And lots of companies, get stuck at that point.
Right.
It's another 10 years of horrible, crazy sleepless nights and a divorce or 2. And it would be awful. No, we have no crazy delusions of doing that. We will hand it off to a partner, either selling it completely or partnering with a company that puts it in writing that they will have X number of units out to the public by this date. And if they fail to do that, the rights would revert back to us and we could sell them to another company or whatever. We're not in any way delusional enough to think we could take this to millions and millions of people. We're going to get it to the point where low volume production is getting a good name for Harmony out there. People see what it's all about. But now our biggest problem is, how do we get it to the 20,000 customers that are banging at our door?
So you talked about your first unit is probably going to be a 400 watt unit. For those people watching who are like, I don't know what that is, 400 watts. Can you walk us through, what does that allow a person to do? How does that help?
Yeah. And we get people asking all the time, will this run my house, or can I run my house on this? No. It's just like a rain barrel. You collect rain when it rains and it goes into your rain barrel, and it offsets how much water that you have to use from the city to go water your garden or your plants. It's there when you want to offset those costs. So in the case of Harmony or any solar or wind that you put on your home, they're all the same. It's not like we have something different. If you have solar, if you have wind on your property, it all works the same. You can dump it into a battery bank, and then that is where you can store the power to use it as you need to, or during the day through inverters and things like that. Or you can do a grid tie inverter where as you're making it, it's just running into your home. And if you have extra that you're making beyond what your home is using, because all the lights are off and people are at work, and then it's sending some back to the grid. Either way, it'll work in either of those 2 scenarios, where you're either sending the power back to the grid or you're putting it in a battery bank to then later be used as needed or on demand.
So when we talk about the 400 watt units, they may be smallish, and the power that they produce is, produces power, but it's not like the 1 megawatt units or anything like that. But the beauty of having a vertical axis wind turbine is that when you put multiples together, the Oxford University had an article that they put out last year,
April of last year,
discussing the efficiencies being increased for vertical axis wind turbines when they are clustered together. So that's cool, because even though we
put a
have
little farm
400
of
watt
them
units, you can put a couple.
in your field, in your backyard, whatever.
And not only would they do 400 watts, but they would, if you place them properly, you could get even more power out of them. So it's Penn State that is looking at the clustering effect. That's part of the research that they're doing, is what kind of, like, how far apart would you have to have them? What arrangement would you do for maximum efficiency when you're clustering them together? So that's another exciting piece about how we're doing our wind turbines and the design, and bringing vertical axis wind turbines back, like making them a thing. They're not a thing right now. So
they've gotten a lot of bad press over the last 60 years. And I'll send you in our B-roll the footage of the chart that actually, it's got a chart of like horizontal axis wind turbines and the American windmill and stuff like that. But they drew the line wrong where they labeled American windmill and a Savonius turbine. The Savonius turbine, when they originally tested it, was over 30% efficient, and the curve was showing that. And then somewhere, you have to wonder, did someone get paid off? Did this happen by accident, or did it happen because someone paid someone, $30,000 60 years ago to just draw a line to the wrong place? But that has been literally taught in universities and in engineering classes. We had Dr. Panah from Penn State slapped her hands down on the table when I was talking about this in our Zoom video. And she was like, yes, I've been trying to tell my students that for years. The charts are wrong. But it's cool because I can't say I'm upset about it. It's allowed us this little niche market in which to grow where nobody even gave us a second look. They're all like, oh, it's vertical axis wind turbines. Those are crap. Well, guess what? We're about to turn that incorrect data on its ear. And as more and more engineering white papers are written and studies are done and they prove, yes, these things are 30+% efficient, now we're moving into the realm of mass adoption, because the way those charts were written, they were like 10% efficient. And of course, no one's going to look at something that's only 10% efficient. But the Savonius turbines are 30+% efficient. When you add the helix twist like Harmony has, now you raise the efficiency more. When you add the ribbed sections to them, now you raise the efficiency even more. And the biggest drawback in those articles that were written 60 years ago that they found with the Savonius turbine was its problems in high wind situations. Prone to destruction in high wind situations. Hello, we've solved that problem. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. Now we have this super strong turbine able to start and run in low wind speeds with great amounts of torque and reliability. But we've also solved the high-end problem that the old, not ancestral ones, but the older models 60 years ago had. We have solved that with our Furling technology.
I love that you talked about synchronicity, because I think that what's happening right now is with batteries and with the YouTube, the ability for people who might have heard about this in the past and gone, well, I don't know, that sounds pretty scary, I don't know how to do it. Now you're seeing that people out there are showing you how to do it. And that's what we want to do on this channel. The same thing is we want to show that, like, batteries are not scary, wind turbines are not scary, solar's not scary. It's all stuff like you're in your garage now, probably America, right, working on a car that's scary, right? It has things blowing up inside of it. And we're all used to doing that, right? Going into our garage and working on an old Mustang or something. And I just think that if we can go forward working on new technology that is not scary, really, and can make your house sustainable, I think everyone's going to be doing these projects. They're going to be fun to do. And I think there's going to be more and more electricians and other trades that are going to say, like, oh, yeah, we can do those projects for you. I think what's weird today is that if you talk to most electricians, and tell me if this is true in your area, but if you talk to them about power walls or solar, a lot of them are like, yeah, I don't do that. And it's like, why wouldn't you do that? This is exciting technology.
I think it's because of what we just said. The products that are out there on the market suck. And when you look at the Powerwall market and things like that, and even electric vehicles, the best technology we had up to this date was your lithium ion. Now they're finally starting to talk about solid state batteries and carbon zeolites and carbon buckyballs and things like that. And you have the ability now within the next 5 years to where we are going to have either supercapacitors or ultracapacitors to store this power, where you've got millions of charge cycles, Zach, millions, before you have any degradation. And when we get to that stage, synchronicity, it is the perfect time to now add your solar and your wind right on your home. Because with a bank of supercapacitors in your basement that could give you 2 or 3 days of storage, all of the problems of the current technology go away. And you can actually have the same thing going on like with the cell phone industry, where people went, and started cutting their landlines because they now had a cell phone and they could be disconnected. We're going to be able to disconnect from the grid when we get to the technology that you're talking about very, very soon, in a few years. And when that battery technology finally comes to maturity, people are going to be looking desperately for the best sources that they can dump into to fill their banks up. The best solar, probably, thin film solar that's going to be out there, and multi-layer solar, and then the wind turbine technology, which we hope Harmony will be at the forefront of. So our technology will scale up from small scale and home and business and boating all the way up into, who knows, maybe 100 kilowatts of size. I don't ever see Harmony getting into the megawatt size, but I could see it getting into hundreds of, 100 kilowatts or something like that. And as Cheryl just said, the clustering effect is going to be huge in grid layouts like that. We're out in the ocean now. You have these beautiful things out there. They're not, monstrosities that are causing problems, but something beautiful that now if something happens to 1 or 2 of them, you're not knocking out power for a whole area because you've got redundancy in numbers and the ability to set them up with easier, cheaper, quicker, more efficient, rigs and cranes and stuff. Instead of the 500 tall foot cranes that they need to do it now, they could do it with 10 times less cost and 10 times less danger to get these set up. And that's what's appealing. Our technology can scale to a certain point and be environmentally friendly all at the same time.
Well, guys, I heard that you just went live with your Startengine. So that is available now for people who are interested in investing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is. And there are perks. We have several layers of perks for our investors. One of them is time-based. So we have it listed there on our campaign page on Startengine.
Now, Jesse and I say this all the time. This is capitalism. And if you put your money to work on projects that you want to have happen, then they tend to happen. And so I'm going to say right now, I'm very interested in investing. I'm going to wait till Jesse has seen this interview and talked about it with me. But over on Patreon, we're going to announce whether we're investing in you guys or not. So please head on over to our Patreon and check that out on our investor club. It's not a guarantee. All startups are startups. And so really good chance that they're not going to make it. But if you don't invest in the things you believe in, then they're definitely not going to make it. So if you believe in what these guys are doing over here, I urge you to go check it out and think about it and talk to your friends and family about it and see if you want to invest. I love that you're doing crowdfunding because for a very small investment, as you said, a minimum of $200, what you might go and spend on a fun weekend in Vegas, right? You can put into a company that could turn into something really big. And I'm really excited that you're willing to have some other company maybe take on the production part. I mean, let's talk about a gigafactory someday that maybe has a corner of it working on Harmony turbines. Like, that's a possible thing.
I'd love to chat with Elon about this, but you can't just call Elon up and chat to him on the phone. Maybe you can, but...
People ask us that all the time. Why can't you call up Elon? I know. If I could, this would be on my top 10 list of what I want to talk to him about.
Yeah. We probably also wouldn't need crowdfunding if we had someone like him that, was like, yeah, that's a really cool project. How much do you need?
Well, that does make you realize that you've done the hard work of solving this problem. You're iterating right now. It seems so easy to think like, oh, well, I'll just do a vertical turbine. Yeah, that's it. I'm sure, as you've said, you've gone through dozens of iterations, tweaks, and you're constantly getting data. And to that point, I would love if I can be on one of your early lists of testers out there. We would love, Jesse and I, to test out your turbine, give you the data you need, because this is how we move the ball forward.
Yeah, we are going to be looking for people just like yourselves, just like the two of you, to do that for us. So you're the perfect candidate, and we will call you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think it'd be great so people can kind of keep their eye on what's going on. I think the problem with the internet's awesome, right? YouTube is awesome, but the problem is also, we get lots of videos sent to us of companies and people, and lots of things that look good on their face, like, perpetual motion machines look great on their face. Wow, free energy, until you look a little deeper. And I love that we got to talk to you today to find out who are the people behind this. And it just thank you again for taking the time to talk to us.
You're welcome. Thank you, Zach.
Yes.
We're going to be speaking with Cheryl and Christopher on our Patreon Investor Club on a live stream with them so that you can ask them questions. If you're interested in doing that, it's going to be on Monday, October 17th. So if you're seeing this over the weekend, you can prepare for that. Head on over to patreon.com/nowyouknow. If you haven't already, you can support us for as little as $1 a month. And if you want to join our Patreon Investor Club, that's even better because then you're going to get to talk to CEOs like this and find out if this is the right investment for you. So we'll be doing that on October 17th on Monday, and you get to talk to them live on our live stream. We'll see you there.